Someone built it. That's what I keep returning to. The other room, social media, the internet, whatever people are calling it in here, didn't arrive the way this hall arrived. This hall was built for the people who'd use it. A community needed somewhere to meet, and someone put up walls and a roof and a row of hooks along one side. The brief was the people. The other room started closer to that than it ended up. Connection was the original idea, people finding each other across distances that would otherwise have kept them apart. That part was real. It worked. And then, because something that size needed money to exist, and money needed a reason to arrive, the brief changed. Not all at once, gradually, the way things that matter tend to change, by degrees, each one defensible in isolation, the cumulative effect only visible once you're far enough along to look back. What the money needed was attention, not occasional attention, continuous attention. The measure of success became time, the minutes and hours spent inside the other room, because those were what was being sold, not to the person inside, to the person watching from outside, willing to pay to reach an audience that never quite left. What that requirement did to the design is something worth naming. A room at ease doesn't stay. People settle, the conversation finds its level. There's nothing urgent pressing, and when it's done, it's done. The coat goes back on. So ease, from the point of view of the business, was a problem. A room kept slightly unsettled stays longer. A room that's just been told something alarming comes back to check what happened next. And a room that's angry, given something to direct the anger at, something that found the thing in the person already looking for somewhere to go, that room doesn't walk away. What I've watched arrive in this hall, across the years the other room has been running, is a quality of agitation that didn't used to come through that door at the same rate. Not in every person, not every time, but often enough and consistently enough that I've had a long time to notice it. People arriving wound up in a way that doesn't quite match the room they've walked into, still carrying the temperature of wherever they were before they came through the door. The outrage travels faster than the reassurance. That's just how people are wired. The alarm arrives before the all clear, because the wiring is old and was built for genuine threats. The other room was built around that, not to help the person manage the alarm, to keep it arriving. Because the alternative, the settled room, the room at ease, didn't serve the business. Not everyone who built these rooms had the same intentions, and the intentions weren't always what the outcomes became. But what I've watched in the people coming through that door is the outcome, not the intention. And the outcome is a room that learned, because it was built to learn, that keeping people slightly off balance was more profitable than setting them at ease. The feed was built to never end. There's a moment in a room like mine when things wind down naturally. The evening reaches its own conclusion. People feel it before anyone says it. Coats come back on. The other room was built to have no equivalent moment, no natural stopping point. The scroll continues past the end of what's there into more of what's there. Because the question that occupied the people who built it was never, what does this person need? But what keeps this person from stopping? What keeps them is not satisfaction. Satisfaction is the end of the visit. The person who got what they came for leaves. What keeps them is the not knowing, the thing that might be there, just past the next scroll. The extraordinary post, or the alarming one, or the one that confirms something they half believed. Not arriving every time. sometimes nothing, sometimes something that stops them. The not knowing, which is what the compulsion runs on. They didn't stumble on this. They found it, and they built around it, and the lever was always there on purpose. The third thing is the one I watch most carefully in the people who come through that door. The attention the other room ran through its machine came back changed. Shorter in some people. Not because they were weaker or less capable, because the kind of attention you practice most is the kind you develop. And the kind the other room required, fast, always moving, on to the next thing before the current thing had finished, was being practiced by some people for hours every day. I've watched this arrive in conversations in this hall. Not dramatically, quietly, the way most things that matter arrive. The conversation that runs a little long. The person finding their words slowly. The ordinary pace of someone working something out. And the almost imperceptible restlessness in the person across from them. Not unkindness, just a pace the body had forgotten how to hold. Or the uncomfortable feeling that arrives without asking, sat with for a moment, and then the hand already moving, the pocket already open, the other room already there, ready to replace the feeling with something faster, something that didn't ask to be sat with. The real world still moves at the speed it's always moved. Relationships take the time they take. Difficult feelings need the minutes they need. The other room made none of that faster. It just made some people less comfortable with the pace of it, and then offered the thing that felt like relief, which was also the thing that had been making them uncomfortable in the first place. The scroll as rest that isn't rest. And the gap. I've watched what happens in gaps for as long as I've been on this wall. The silence between one thing and the next. The pause when a meeting ends and nobody's moved yet. The few minutes before something starts. Those gaps had a quality I came to know well. Not emptiness, the opposite. An interior activity that didn't show on the surface. Thoughts moving without direction, the mind loose. Not arriving anywhere in particular, not trying to. Things came out of those gaps. The thing that needed to be said, arriving when the trying stopped. The decision that settled into someone's face while they were sitting in what looked like nothing. The gap needed to be boring to work. It needed to be allowed to be nothing, long enough for the nothing to become something. The other room was built specifically to fill it, not as a side effect, as a design goal. An empty moment is a moment not spent inside it. 2 seconds is enough. The hand moves before the gap has had time to be anything at all. The silence that used to just be silence, gone before it can become anything else. There's one thing I've overheard in this room that I keep returning to. Some of the people who understood the other room best, who had spent the most time inside the design of it, who could see most clearly what it was doing to the people running through it, made a specific decision about their own children. They kept them away from it. But I've also watched something else from this wall, and I want to say this plainly, because what came before it is easier to carry if I do. Some of the people who come through that door have seen it. Not all at once. It doesn't happen all at once. A moment of recognition usually, something small. The phone put down after a session that left them feeling worse than when they picked it up. The same feeling the next time, noticed properly for the first time because they were paying attention. The scroll as rest that had never actually rested them, recognized suddenly as exactly that. I've watched people come through that door differently after that recognition. Not dramatically, not with announcements. They still carry the phone, they still go into the other room. But something in the way they hold it has changed. A slight pause before the pocket opens. The gap allowed to last a moment longer before it's filled. The conversation in this room given the full weight of their attention, rather than the partial weight that was all that was left after the other room had taken what it took. One woman I've watched for a few years now, I know her coat well, started leaving her phone in her bag when she sat down. Not as a rule she'd made, just something she'd started doing. She picks it up when she leaves, but while she's here, it stays in the bag. Nobody commented on it. Nobody noticed, probably. I did. The other room was built by people who understood exactly what they were building. But the people inside it are not without the ability to understand it too. And understanding it, knowing what the design was for, what it cost, what it was taking in exchange for what it gave, turns out to be the beginning of being in it differently. Whether you're in it or it's in you, there's a difference. And it starts with seeing the room clearly enough to know which one is true. I'll still be here when you get back.